Welcome to Inspired Edinburgh. Powerful conversations helping you reconnect with your purpose. I'm Elliot Reeves, and my guest today is Aleksander Vitkin. Aleksander is an entrepreneur and creator and founder of Daily Business Hustle, an online community of young entrepreneurs. You've coached hundreds of people to build their own 6- and 7-figure businesses. You're a speaker, a YouTuber, a blogger, a photographer, a world traveler, and have interviewed highly successful business people such as Joel Brown, Nick Coe, Gulliver, Giles, and Lopez. Aleksander, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. It's great to have you here. I was lucky to catch you amidst all your traveling plans. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Awesome.
So it would be super if we could start, I suppose, by setting the scene. If you could tell us probably a bit about, your background, your early life, and really who Aleksander Vitkin is.
Yeah, I guess I have quite an unusual background from the perspective of most people, because I was born in Russia in the 80s. I prefer not to say my age, but you guys can do the math. And we got out of there, of course, as soon as the doors opened, just got out of there. And I grew up in Belgium, in just a small town. And everyone I knew was just normal person, just normal jobs, and just had a normal education, normal high school, where we got taught what everyone else gets taught, that you should be studying a lot, get good grades, go to university, get more good grades, get an internship, a steady job, a house with a white pickety fence, a golden retriever, a wife, and 1.9 children. So that's the education there.
Yeah.
And then again, I was told, now you should get a job. Now you graduated, get a job. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, I'm just going to become a consultant. Early 20s, I'm going to be a consultant. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about business or marketing, even though I had studied 4 years and had 2 marketing degrees. I didn't actually know anything. I didn't know sales. I didn't know how an actual business works or looks like. I had done some internships, but it's internships. It's not really experience. So I started as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, and as a consultant, and I tried selling websites, videos, SEO, ran some online blogs and stuff like that, and it worked. I got some sales, got some clients. I knocked on people's doors. Hello, are you looking for a marketer? No. Hello, are you looking for a marketer? No. Until someone finally said yes. Coincidentally, it was via social media that someone said yes. So got some clients. They paid me peanuts. I didn't know sales. So they ended up paying me a few $100s per client, or euros or pounds, you could say, because we're in the United Kingdom here.
Yeah.
So wasn't too successful, actually. But I did learn a lot. Even in the first 2 months, I learned more than 4 years of college. And I went to 2 colleges at the same time, got 2 degrees at the same time. So what happened was 2 months, learned more in business, getting these tiny little sales and getting my little pinky wet, just from that tiny little piece of experience, I learned more than 4 years in college. Yeah. And that made me realize, am I ever going to have a job? I prefer not to. And I was really committed to business. And to be honest, that wasn't enough. So what ended up happening is the first 2 years I actually lost money.
Okay.
So because in Belgium you have to pay taxes whether you make a profit or not. You have to pay Social Security and all that kind of stuff. It was quite, for a very young entrepreneur with very little experience, was a hefty sum. So I ended up getting into debt, and had to get a job for 8 months. It was in the middle of the economic recession. So what happened was I paid off the debt very quickly. And then I decided, okay, this is the final job I'll ever have. And I'm going to travel. Is this a good idea to start traveling? If you're just kind of just beyond broke, is it a good idea to start traveling? Absolutely not. I don't recommend doing that to most people.
Yeah.
But I said, not only am I going to start traveling, but I'm going to cut off most of my ties to the point where it's very hard to go back. And I'm going to move to a country where I've been only once as a 14-year-old on a very short holiday. I'm going to move to a huge city And I had never been in a huge city before. It was Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be there all alone. I've never been there before. And I'm going to make this business thing really, really work. And I got mentored, read a lot of books. And after several months, I really hit it off. Like, it was really big success for me. And I was able to travel the world. And since then, I've been to 42 countries and counting.
Wow.
And just, a lot more success than before, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been going great, just traveling the world now, doing events. And now, last few years, I've been I started coaching people after 6 years experience in business.
Yeah.
Started coaching young entrepreneurs and getting some great results.
So was that at the point that you started Daily Business Hustle? And for anyone that's watching and interested about it, if you can tell us a bit about that, that would be great.
So the way it kind of started was not as Daily Business Hustle, but it just started as me. I was a freelancer. I had really good clients and a consultant. I had really successful clients. And I said, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I just started putting some of my experiences and success stories and that sort of stuff on YouTube. It was very simple. I was not very confident on camera. It's still on YouTube. If anyone wants, they can look it up. Please don't. But I started making videos, and I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. I just said, I'm just going to put everything that I know on videos. So over a period of 2 weeks, I made videos every single day. I forced myself to go on the street in the middle of a huge crowd sometimes, lots of noise, and just with my little camera and a friend who also started a YouTube channel, and like, hey, I just want to talk about how to start a community, or I just want to talk about sales, or how to learn marketing, and so on. And I had a mentor at the time, and my mentor is like, oh, Alex, that's nice. You have your little YouTube channel, you have a few hundred subscribers, but how much money have you made? I'm like, well, I only started 2 weeks ago with this YouTube channel. He's like, no, go make money. And within 1 hour, I had my first client for that business. So I posted on the social media. I just said, okay, everyone, you've been watching my content. What do you actually want to know from me? They're like, coaches. I'm like, okay, I guess I could do that. Even though I said earlier on when I started the YouTube channel, I said, I don't want to be a business coach. I don't want to coach normal people how to build a business, not because I don't necessarily want to, not because I wouldn't like it or anything like that. It's just that the whole industry of coaching is a little bit scammy. There's a lot of very shady information marketers out there who teach very shady stuff that doesn't work, just string people along, that kind of stuff. That was my perceived reality of how the industry worked. But then I got on these calls with people from the audience, and they all kept saying, no, I just want to learn how you did it. I just want to learn from you because you're successful. Please tell me how to build a business. I'm tired of having a job. And I said, no, I don't want to teach that. And I sold them like a 1 hour coaching session. And some people got results. So eventually, after 20 plus people, I was like, okay, you want me to do this? I'll do this. So I started a group. Instead of doing one-on-one, I started a group, and I invited some of the people that I had coached in the past, just for fun, just friends who I helped start a business. And I started adding paying clients to the group. So that ended up being Daily Business Hustle. And in 2014, we were teaching people how to start a YouTube channel and how to get sales from that. And we still work with some of the people from back then. Some of them became very famous YouTubers. You know, if you type in YouTube Mario Atomic or How to Rap Drew, those types of guys, Alex Stevenson, these are some of the very early members who joined the Mastermind. So what ended up happening is it grew a lot. We've had more than 350 members since then. That was 2014. And some people ended up building a business that is over $1 million.
Wow.
So we had guys who just had a full-time job. They joined, and we just said, you can do this. Just do these simple things here. It was, at that time, I remember it was August 2014. It was, let's do cold calling. And some of the members, they became extremely successful. They ended up coming home from the job after a full day's work and doing another 5 hours of work. And after a few weeks, some of them told me, I actually made $6,500, or I actually made $4,000. I made $3,000. I was like, wait a second. So these random people, some of them with no sales experience, are becoming actual entrepreneurs and making close to six figures not on a yearly basis, right? So they're making almost $8,000 after less than a month. So we started pushing cold calling a lot. So it became a whole thing for us of teaching people how to cold call, how to build a business using cold calls. And later on, we developed other strategies because cold calling is really hard. You have to push people really hard. So we developed strategies where it's easier with inbound processes where clients come to you. And we taught people sales like that. And we, from day one, we focused on developing core basic skills that any entrepreneur needs. And we found that if people learn these core basic skills like sales, lead generation, and hiring people, and so on, then they can build all kinds of businesses. But we preferred to focus, it kind of slowly developed as we taught how to build an online agency, a digital agency. That means agency is a company that sells services like Facebook ads, website creation, and so on. So now we have 125 active members, and from all over the world, anywhere I go, there's always people meeting me, and some that are extremely successful. We have multiple millionaires, and we work with 10 coaches. And every single coach in the Mastermind, and this is unique, I've never heard about this ever anywhere in this industry. Basically, every single coach is someone who joined the Mastermind with little or no business experience whatsoever. In fact, maybe one of them had a little bit of business experience. Everyone else was complete beginner. And we taught them to the point where they're able to teach people business. Now, traditionally, you need to, they say, oh, you don't have 20 years of business experience? You're not a billionaire? Well, don't teach people business. Well, I beg to differ. Because we have people who join and after 6 months, they become coaches. We don't look at how many years or how many billions of dollars. Are they making enough money now? Yes or no? Do they know the process? Yes or no? Are they able to teach the process, and do people listen to them and get results? Yes or no? That's what we look at.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. It's a very close-knit community of entrepreneurs. And where it's going, or perhaps that's like a future question you would like to ask, but where it's going to go is we're reimagining how education for entrepreneurs works, because I tried the traditional route, it doesn't work.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. It sounds fantastic, I have to say. Yeah, brilliant, really good. One of the things that I know that you're a big advocate of is outsourcing or Upwork. So how do you go about using that in a sort of practical sense? What are the things that you use it for?
So Upwork just happens to be a tool that we use currently. Now, throughout the years, we've used many different platforms and ways of generating leads and places to find people. Currently, a good place to hire freelancers is Upwork. So in terms of outsourcing, how do we use it? We just go there, post a job. We're very critical of who we work with. Like, we screen them very hard, give them like short assignments. I have a YouTube video, the Aleksander Vitkin fast recruitment process in 2014. You could just watch it and implement it. And the core principle is choose proven, successful freelancers who have leverage. That means usually they're 30 years old and have children. So they're very motivated to stick to a job and keep delivering and not try to do weird stuff. We love working with women because they tend to be, how do I put this? They tend to be more honest if you're hiring online, because you're not meeting the person. It's an online person, and you want to work with people who are not going to lie to you. You want to work with people who stick around after you train them and so on. And if they have children and they have leverage, they want to work, they need to work, and we pay them more than fair wage, and it works fantastically well. And you don't have to have an office. You can travel the world while running a business and so on. Now, another way we use Upwork is it's not just recruiting people. It's also, most people think Upwork is just a way to find a freelancer, like a nice cheap freelancer. But for us, Upwork is a way to get phone calls with qualified leads, because companies and individuals go to Upwork and they post exactly what they need. They're like, please, someone, we want to pay you money. Please do this service for us. You can sell stuff for $10,000 on Upwork. People think, oh, there's competition. There's this person offering a service for $3 an hour. It doesn't matter. If you know sales, if you can create a funnel to get people on phone calls, it doesn't matter what someone else is doing at Upwork, because most people on Upwork don't know sales. They just see themselves as a cheap employee, or in the best case scenario as a cheap freelancer. So if you come there and you know how to deliver a service, you know what you're talking about, you know sales, you can get people on phone calls. You're not like afraid of getting on a phone call with a stranger. And you follow a good sales process, right? We have the 7 steps in Daily Business Hustle, but there's a million sales processes out there. So if you follow a good sales process and you get people to pay you as soon as possible, commitment, and you work with the right people, you choose your clients very carefully, this is probably the easiest way to build a business that I've ever seen in 9 years of experience in business. So when I started was pick up the phone or walk into a company, hi, eventually you say, would you be interested in a website or whatever? And most of them said no. Now you go to people, they already said they want to do it. They already said they're interested in the service. So your job is to make it clear to them that you have their best interest in mind and that they understand what you're going to deliver and so on, and get payment, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so much easier than it was 9 years ago. It's incredible.
Yeah. So when you're doing it, I mean, are you effectively establishing a virtual agency that's offering services?
Yes. So our members, the quote unquote basic business model, or whatever you want to call it, is an online agency. Because guys in their 20s, those are the people who tend to watch my YouTube channel, FYI. So guys in their 20s, what they want to do is travel the world, make money, and just do cool stuff where they don't have like a boss and an office they have to show up at every morning. So that's what we help them do, basically. So it's you don't have to be in a place. If you want to talk about travel, you don't have to be in a single location for longer than 3 months to run a business. I wouldn't backpack and go in hostels, but I would stay per city. I would do 3 months and go to countries that are, have good internet at least, and where you're not going to end up in a hospital for various reasons, right? Maybe you can network locally a little bit, but basically you can go almost anywhere in the world, and you can run an online business. And I tell this to one of my mentors. He's 52 years old, and he has a $100 million company. I tell them these stories like, what has the world become? This is incredible. I wish I had this when I was young.
Yeah.
The man is doing $100 million a year, and he says he's jealous of us. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, I suppose from your perspective, it's not all kind of glamorous either. Because a lot of people just think it's just like, oh, you're just flying around, sitting on beaches all day. It's not quite like that.
I haven't sat on a beach in a very long time, but I'm not a big fan of beaches anyway. You could potentially, if you have 4G internet and you can really focus, you could sit on a beach. But why not just work 8 to 10 hours a day and then go sit on a beach?
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. It's certainly not glamorous. The actual work, it's you're working with people online. They're human beings. They have their flaws. You better know what you're doing, and you better have a process, explain the process to them, and follow the process very closely. And make sure you get paid, which is not evident. Most people are even afraid of asking for money online. But it's very important that you do, and keep your clients engaged and interested in completing the project with you. If you're able to do that, then by all means sit on a beach. But it's certainly not glamorous. An online agency is hard work, just like any type of business. There is no business that is sitting on the beach and you do nothing. Unless you spend 10 years building the business, hire a bunch of employees, and then leave for a couple of weeks. You could do that, but your business, if it's an agency and you just started, it's going to collapse most likely.
Yeah. So what does a sort of ordinary day in your life look like?
Well, I'm running the Mastermind. I'm running an online community What I do is I help young entrepreneurs and I coach them. So on an average day, I'm recording YouTube videos and I'm coaching people. And I also help our instructors because we have like a trusted advisor board. So we're doing everything that we can to, in the mastermind, to create this is a medium-term goal, is to create $100 million of wealth in the mastermind, right?
Wow.
So that we have a little bit more influence, a little more control. Because now we're kind of going with the flow. We're following the market and so on. But if you can create a community where it's hundreds of successful entrepreneurs, and you can make a real positive change, you can make a real positive change for young entrepreneurs to achieve success faster and avoid this trap of going to college to study business, which you definitely don't have to do. So we're working on that every single day. So my day is create content, social media work, coaching people, helping with sales, and so on.
Okay. Excellent. So, I mean, you've obviously done a significant amount of traveling over the years. How do you think that that's changed you or perhaps influenced your worldview?
So I get asked this occasionally, not as often as you would imagine. So the traveling the world, it just, in your mind, before traveling, because I remember it was not that many years ago, I've only been traveling the world for 6 years now. Okay. So in your mind, before traveling, the world seems like this giant place. And New York, it's so far away. And Hawaii is so far away. Australia is not even on this planet, and so on. But if you've traveled for several years, almost without pause, then you realize you're just all in a big city, especially with the internet now. I take out my phone and I'm on a call with a client from Sydney, Australia, and the next day I'm on a call with a client from London, right? Does it matter that they're in Australia and London? No, it's all very close to each other. And as you travel the world, you realize that everyone in the whole world, without any exception, thinks they're on the right path, they're doing the right thing, and they're the good guys, and so on. It's just, we're just human beings, and we're just doing what we can to the best of our abilities, usually. And, people have the same general goals, same ambitions, and if we can improve anything in the world, if we can spend our very limited amount of time in the world improving just one thing, like I'm working on education, for example. If it just improves by 1%, that's a huge change that will happen. And it doesn't matter exactly where it is in the world. It's all global, right? So, and you can listen to it in the news, but if you travel and you see the same things happening everywhere. I'm not going to go political here or anything like that, but you can see the same things happening here, and you go all the way around the world, and the same thing here, and same conversations, same problems, same types of solutions, and so on. You realize that you need to focus on what you can change and just dedicate your life to it. And that's really going to make a huge difference. And I don't know if that makes enough sense, but it's a very small planet, and I think it's going to be a better place if everyone takes more responsibility. And again, this is not political. I'm not like whatever. I'm not. This is not about environment or anything like that. If everyone just takes responsibility for what they can and work their ass off to just improve the world, the place we live in, and the place we leave for future generations. Right? That's alone is already enough to change everything in a very big way. And just 1% change in 100 years is going to be incredible, basically. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, definitely, yeah.
So, but as you travel the world, it just, like, you realize it's like the butterfly effect, Yeah. Just if you influence one person, every video I make, I look at the camera and I just think to myself, I mean, I like to imagine 40,000 people who've watched the video, but I like to imagine I just change one person's perception of how to approach business or life, and that's already enough sometimes. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And as you travel the world, you realize that more and more and more, it becomes this very clear picture. Now, as I'm explaining this, I'm realizing that maybe my picture is not completely clear yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. I really, really like that. So I know that you went to, you call it college, it's maybe university where I'm from, and you did 2 courses, I believe, in marketing. So what were some of the things that you, of the things that you learned, how much of it was relevant to actual business?
So in terms of day-to-day activities in business, you could probably get this type of information in a week or two, in terms of what's actually relevant.
Really?
So I guess learning to read graphs, but I learned that in high school. Like statistics, I learned that in high school. It's almost nothing. It's not even worth talking about, to be honest. It's so little.
And so how would you therefore change the education system if you could?
So I don't believe in changing the education system that exists. I believe in just creating a whole new paradigm. So if you think about it, even 2,000 years ago, how were people educated a lot of the time? You had experts, or they weren't called experts, but you had masters and you had apprentices, right? And especially very wealthy children, they were taught one-on-one by world-class experts. Now, you can never have every single person in the world learn one-on-one from a world-class expert. Could you? Well, not 2,000 years ago, but now you can. Just think about it. You don't need to go to this room in a building where someone teaches you economy, but you want to be an entrepreneur, right? But they teach you economy as a way to prepare you for a job, but they've never run a business, so they're not going to influence you to start a business, right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I kind of veered off there. What was the original question?
It was really about the education system.
So basically, the general education system. So basically, what if more people were influenced to take full responsibility for where they're heading and to take full responsibility to improve things? That is like the essence of entrepreneurship, increasing the value of things. I actually learned this from a mentor. His name is Eben Pagan.
Oh, yeah.
So increasing the value of things. Just think about it. If everyone was thinking like that, well, everyone is a big word, but if more people were thinking like that, I want to be a leader. I want to improve the world. I want to increase the value of things. I want to improve the way we all talk to each other and the way we all interact. And how is that done? In my opinion, is through entrepreneurship and through business. So I don't think entrepreneurs are interested in war or politics or anything like that. Entrepreneurs are interested in working together, creating more trust, and creating more value for as many people as possible. And I think almost any entrepreneur would agree with that.
Yeah.
And the more people become entrepreneurs, the more people take personal responsibility, the less silly problems, avoidable problems there will be in the world.
Good answer. So you obviously, you have a lot going on in your life. Yeah, I spent a bit of time with you yesterday. You're always sort of on social media. You're always thinking about things. How do you avoid burning out, and how do you manage stress?
So this is a very interesting topic because we had this conversation with my mentor in the Mastermind. As I mentioned, he runs a $100 million company, and he said, "You guys are all working way too hard, right? Me, everyone else." He's like, "How many hours do you work?" I was like, "Well, this week 13, 14 per day on average, 7 days a week." He's like,
Jeez.
"Why? Why do you do that?" After 8 to 10 hours a day, the value that you can produce after that is very little. There's massive diminishing returns after that, and I think this is widely acknowledged. In a lot of countries, it's most jobs you can't even work more than 8 hours a day. It's very hard to get jobs like that because they realized there's diminishing returns. So if you fill your head with just this work thing nonstop, this whole work super hard and kill yourself, right? Are you going to be able to produce for next 50 years if you're 30 years old? Are you going to be able to produce for next 50 years? Or are you going to get burnt out? Well, I certainly had a few burnouts. When I was starting this business, it doesn't matter how many years of experience I had or anything, I was sitting there with my phone, I mean Skype obviously, but with my quote-unquote phone, making phone calls, closing sales. Any friends invited me for dinner, I try to close their girlfriend, right? Have you ever considered starting a business? I would ask them.
Oh my God.
Taxi driver on the way to the restaurant.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
how long have you been driving a taxi? Would you start a business? What about an online business? Have you considered that? Just try closing everyone on a sale. And of course, this is not sustainable. I ended up in the hospital in 2015 because of nothing too serious, but it was basically symptoms of like early symptoms of burnout and stuff like that. So how do you avoid that? I mean, it's structure your day very, very carefully. I have Google Calendar now, and Google Calendar is my boss. Okay, I don't have, there's no one, I'm the quote unquote founder of the company, whatever you want to say, but I serve people in the company. I serve quote unquote employees, although I don't really work with employees, I work with freelancers, but I try to help people, lift them up and keep them on track, right? So if I burn myself out, then I'm not helping anyone. So my primary focus is follow the Google Calendar, follow the schedule, follow the structure, and the more I follow the process, the more results I get, and the less I burn out. Because I don't just focus on business anymore. I did that for 2 years, and it was very unhealthy. So in fact, if you look, just a quick story, if you look at my videos from 2014, I look 18 years old in some of them. When I was shaved and all that, who is this child? That's what it looks like. And you age quickly through stress, and you're not able to work as hard. So I've decided to focus a certain amount of time on business, but the rest of the other hours, I'm focused on my well-being and making sure that the next day, the next year, and the next 10 years, and so on, that I'm able to produce. So I guess there's this whole paradigm in society right now of get to 65 because that's retirement and that's when the golden years start. How are they the golden years? How is that? The most productive, most creative years are between, a lot of people are not going to like this, but it's between, scientifically speaking, okay, between, let's say, what was the number again? Let's say 16 and 35 in terms of when were the most discoveries and progress made. When did people learn the most? Between 16 and 35. Einstein, just look up when he made most of his discoveries. It's not in his 70s, right? So how are they the golden years, right? But someone who wants to become truly, truly successful, I believe the long game is the way to go. And I know there's people who disagree, and people who work so many hours that they only have 4 hours of sleep and all this stuff. But I just don't see it like, I don't believe in that anymore. I used to, but I don't believe in that anymore. I believe in avoiding burnouts, following a strict schedule, allowing yourself still to be creative despite the schedule, and lifting other people up to achieve results, working on a common goal.
Yeah, I love that when you talk about being, I suppose it's the whole idea of being a leader as opposed to being a boss. You're trying to help people and empower them and get them to do great work rather than telling them what to do all the time.
I think there's a term for this. It's called servant leadership or something like that. Okay. My mentor mentioned a term like that. Oh well, I don't remember the exact term.
No problem. So what do you do anything in terms of like meditation practice or kind of anything else to unwind?
So to unwind, I mean, I go on dates, but other stuff. So there's the gym stuff, of course. I did meditation for many years. I started when I was 16 or 17 when I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I did Zazen meditation for many years. And but currently I don't meditate actively. There is something called passive meditation, all that kind of stuff, but I prefer not think about that. Sometimes I focus on my breathing and that kind of stuff, and I focus also on maintaining healthy heart rhythm and that kind of stuff, which is very healthy. But I wouldn't say that I actively meditate currently. And what other stuff? Sometimes every few months I need to travel. I need to go to a new place, and that helps a lot because it helps me reset my schedule and rearrange my life. Because if you're in the same spot and everything is in place, all the processes are in place, change is hard.
Yeah.
But if you're always moving, you're forced to implement a few changes every few months. Very interesting way of living your life, by the way.
Yeah. And so how do you go about identifying when is the right time to be moving?
I move every 3 months.
Okay.
Although now I am on a 6 months stay in one location, but that's because I traveled too much for 1.5 years. So now I needed the 6 months to just put things in order. But now I'm gonna do 3 months at a time again. It's just like we found through many years of trial and error that 3 months is kind of the magic number, basically. So how do you know? Some people maybe it's less, some people maybe it's more, but 3 months tends to be like the golden road for most people.
Cool. One of the things that I really admire about you actually is the fact that you have strong opinions and you're not afraid to voice them. So when did you sort of learn that, and do you never worry that you're going to say something that's just going to start a kind of fire?
So there's many things going on there. Strong opinions. If you're gonna teach people and you don't have strong opinions, they don't even believe what you're saying. However, strong opinion doesn't mean that you can't change your opinion. And one of my very long-term goals is the ability to change my opinion. In fact, we just had a conversation with Mario Tomic about brain plasticity.
Okay.
The problem with people who age is that they're unable to change their opinions and the way their brain works. The benefit is you come off as a lot more sure of yourself, but the disadvantage is you're not as creative and so on. So I actively work on creativity on a daily, sometimes even hourly basis. With social media you have to, otherwise you become irrelevant almost instantly. So the strong opinions are there, but they serve a purpose.
Okay.
If they didn't serve a purpose, then I would just brush them aside, basically. And if you can't do that, you become. I've seen some people become these weird narcissistic machines, and it's good that they become irrelevant. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I actively work on having the strong opinions and being sure of myself. However, when the opinion becomes irrelevant or I change it, well, that kind of explains itself, basically. When I change it, then it's gone. It's on to the new opinion. And it's very important to, and the thing with entrepreneurship, oftentimes you have two competing opinions and you're equally convinced of both of them. Sounds weird, but most people would say, oh, you shouldn't do that or whatever, but you need to do that because there's always data A and data B and they're competing with each other, right?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to switch sometimes. It's very important. So these strong opinions, they serve a purpose, and when they don't, they just get brushed aside. And am I afraid of causing problems? Well, most people are terrified of that. They're terrified of upsetting someone, you know? Especially in today's culture, I guess it's almost cliche at this point. There's this avoid inflammatory comments culture, right? But anyone who completely avoids inflammatory comments of any kind and just walks on the narrow road in the corner, they are completely irrelevant. Think about that. Who do you know who's super relevant and completely 100% mainstream? If you watch mainstream TV, for example, who watches mainstream TV these days? If you go to Alexa and you look up who watches mainstream news, it's mostly older people, like 50 plus ish, right? So it's like housewives and stuff like that. So think about that. Do you want to be mainstream? Is this, anyone watching this, do you want to be mainstream? Is this who you want to appeal to? When you talk to journalists, I have very, candid discussions with journalists sometimes, and they say, I'm writing all this stuff, and I know who reads it. It's older generations who just have the same thoughts over and over. They don't change them anymore. And it's so boring because they live vicariously through these perpetually repeated like stereotypes in mainstream media and so on, right? So, and mainstream media is don't offend anyone. Where, well, if you want to impact the world, you're gonna offend someone. So it's fine.
That's such a good answer. Wow. Okay. I don't know if you saw, and this is, I suppose, like the complete, almost antithesis of what you're saying with the older generation. The video that went viral, Simon Sinek on, I can't remember what it's called,
I think
IQ.
I posted it, yeah.
Yeah, talking about the millennial generation and how they're entitled, and how their, employers don't know what they're looking for. And I mean, you obviously spend a lot of time with young guys in their 20s. What are young people these days? What are they looking for?
I have a very skewed view of young people because I create a type of content that I know tends to attract people who want to achieve more and work a little bit harder than the average person and so on. So I can talk about those people. I wouldn't want to talk about everyone because I'm not like some researcher professor. I'm focusing on people who want to be entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And when I talk to these people, they have very, very big dreams, but feel the dreams are being almost suppressed and ridiculed. And they do want to work hard, but they want a simple plan to follow that's not confusing or too out there. And do they feel entitled? Let me think about that. Not the people that I'm working with. I would say it's quite the opposite. They should feel more entitled, to be honest. I don't understand, from my very narrow view of working with entrepreneurs, they need to feel more entitled. They need to feel like they deserve even more wealth and so on. Because I work with people who do want to work hard. So if you do want to work hard, you should feel entitled, in my opinion. And I prefer working with younger people. Certainly I could, my business would be more profitable if I said, I'm going to work with people above 40. Who has more money, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay more for learning how to build a business or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely people over 35 up to 65.
Yeah.
I know this, anyone in the industry will tell you that. So, but I prefer working with younger people because they have vastly bigger ability to change, and the work that they're doing now, it has the ability to create more change because there's more time left for them. So more people with more time left equals more change. So that's what I prefer to do, and they understand it. They're not just jet setting around and partying every day. They understand that they're working on a mission, a lot of them, and they really want to make a change in the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think the previous generation or even before that, I think this is the first time since maybe the 60s or 70s, obviously I wasn't alive then, but I imagine since the 60s or 70s that people really want to see as much change as they want to see now. And it's really a great time to be alive because we're able to create the change, and there's people who want to create a change and want to work for it. Isn't that amazing? They don't want to just sit around, do nothing, and hope change will come. They actually want to work for it. It's really amazing. So I love working with young people. I love working with 16 to in their 30s, people in their 30s, on creating businesses, and it's great.
So, I mean, I actually probably came across you, I'm trying to think, I mean, it would have been probably at least a year ago, And I mean, you put out an enormous amount of content on social media. So what's your, I suppose, overarching strategy for social media, and why do you put out as much content as you do?
Why? Because I have to. One, but that's not the only reason. Two, it's because if you quote unquote force yourself to put on a lot of content, then you become like a vacuum for information, but also you train your muscle. There's not a literal muscle in your brain, of course, but there's a, figuratively speaking, there's a muscle in your brain that allows you to be more creative. So if you do these little sprints of work, let's say, which is social media, right? You sit down, okay, I need to create something that hundreds of people are gonna say, holy shit, this is amazing. If you do this several times per day, and then at the end of the day, you need to create a 20-minute YouTube video explaining a deep, complicated process or concept or a new paradigm, right? Then you're gonna be able to do that much easier than if you just do nothing for 2 weeks and then create a video. Because you just leave your brain alone for 2 weeks and then, okay, now you have to work super hard and create something completely unique that no one has ever said, and it's in an industry completely oversaturated. Good luck. Of course it's not gonna work. You need to exercise the muscle daily and force yourself to become a creator. And it's a very interesting concept, being a creator versus consumer. If you meet anyone, almost anyone in the world, are they a creator or are they consumer? Or do they watch or do they film, you know?
Yeah.
They're going to be watching, they're going to be reading, they're going to be eating, they're going to be, you know, doing all the consumer things, but they're not going to be sitting in front of the camera with a white sheet figuring out what they're going to say and, you know, making it work in the world. That's what you know, that's what makes you very creative and a lot more intelligent as well. And then I'm not calling myself that intelligent, by the way. A lot of people help me do what I do, and that's why we're successful the way we are.
Yeah. You do come off as being quite smart, though.
Well, thank you.
So what platforms do you most enjoy being on?
I know it's fashionable right now to say Instagram and Snapchat. I honestly, I don't like Instagram and Snapchat because most of the content is very effective on there right now. Just is there one moment and is gone the next. So you're creating all this stuff and then it's just gone. I prefer YouTube and Facebook right now, but I'm more than open to change my opinion. And in fact, I'm sure you're going to talk to Mario soon. He's going to probably say Instagram. And he's hugely popular on Instagram right now. But you can build an audience relatively easily on, if you dedicate your life to it, you can build an audience relatively easily on YouTube and on Facebook right now. And they're big, you know, they're the biggest audiences right now. I'm not going to say the most engaged, but I'm going to say the biggest.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I think, is that, you know, we spoke about this yesterday to some extent, is that you essentially said that it's not all about following for you. You know, it's
not all about following.
It's, you know, it's in terms of you're not going to social media just so that you can have 1 million people following you. You're going there for a specific reason. I suppose it's like a return on investment or what nets out to being money rather than just look at how many followers I have. There's a more practical reason why you're doing it, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a 14-year-old girl putting her ass on Instagram and then 10,000 guys like it, and then she's just, okay, well, I get a free perfume in the mail tomorrow or something like that from a company that wants to promote their perfume. I'm not interested in like just audience or anything like that. I'm interested in people who are the most engaged and implement the most. How do you measure that? They end up paying you, and of course, you know, they end up working with you, and you end up helping them achieve great things. So how do you measure that? You know, I guess the answer is money, right? So any business owner who's not focused on revenue, profit, and so on, it's not really a business at that point. So I have to say, of course, I'm not just creating just to create. I mean, of course, there needs to be, some kind of way to survive. And there needs to be, of course, if you can create wealth for others, then you deserve to have some portion of that return to you as well.
Great stuff. So, I mean, we've covered a huge amount about, your background and the work that you're currently doing. And we've got, I think, a lot of really great opinions and views on things, which is, as I say, it's one of the things that I love about you, is that you're not afraid to just say it how it is or how you see it, rather than trying to appease everyone and sit on the fence, which is incredibly refreshing in this day and age. I suppose at this point it would be great to kind of maybe peel back a little bit further and talk to you in a bit more detail around about sort of purpose and success. So what do you feel is your purpose?
Well, I've chosen a purpose, and that is to help. I actually mentioned this before, but not in this context. But I've chosen a purpose that is to help young entrepreneurs achieve success in business, and that is through reimagining the way education works for entrepreneurs.
Wow, I like that.
I like making it shorter and shorter, because I think someone who's the closer someone is to being really in line with their purpose, the shorter their explanation is. I like to believe that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, actually. Yeah, I do. You've actually spoken, I came across a podcast that you'd done reasonably recently, I believe, about people finding their purpose. How do you think other people can go about finding their purpose?
So there is, let's just lump this together with like passion, I guess, because this whole movement, it's not in a movement, it's just a bunch of people who, it's not a conspiracy or anything like that. It's just fashionable to say, work on your passion, find your passion, and then work on your passion, and that sort of stuff, right? And any entrepreneur who's made it, they'll say, well, I found what I'm passionate about. But they tend not to say that when they started, they weren't necessarily super passionate about it. For example, I never talked to Elon Musk, but I've read biographies and so on. I don't imagine he was born and he immediately had a purpose and a passion, sounds so weird, assigned to him. I don't think it works like that. I think that maybe in high school, maybe in college, or whatever is people's lives look like, people have found something they're good at. Maybe they're more analytical, maybe they're more attuned to becoming good at sales and so on. And if they pursue one of these paths, they're likely to find something that they're really, really good at. So for example, someone may be extremely, extremely good at sales, and they really end up loving real estate, right? So we're sitting here in a beautiful room, and it really makes them super excited to sell houses, mansions, you could say, like this to people, right? And I wouldn't say they're born with it. I wouldn't say they just know it. But I would say that after you had a certain amount of success in, let's call it social interactions, maybe you'll discover that you want to do something like that professionally. And then maybe you learn the basics of sales and you get some results in sales. And then you become pretty decent at sales. You get a lot of positive feedback on that, internally, externally. You just feel good about it. It just feels really good, and it, makes the fire burn inside. And maybe then they discover that they want to sell a certain something, like real estate. They want to be in real estate sales or whatever, or coaching for that matter. And they end up, after a year or two, they say, I'm passionate about this. And then they realize that they can make a huge change by becoming a real estate, billionaire or whatever. And then they end up becoming this billionaire. And then someone asks them, how did you discover, like what should young entrepreneurs do? They find your passion. Well, they didn't just find their passion.
Yeah.
It grew through external and internal factors.
Mm-hmm.
So what is my advice for young entrepreneurs? It's not find your passion, because they don't know how the hell to do that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to learn valuable skills that they get rewarded for. And being rewarded for something means you can spend more time on it, especially financial reward. If you are a bartender and an artist, you spend 10 hours a day bartending and 2 hours a week painting, right? Can you say that you're passionate about painting? Maybe it feels good to paint, but you're a bartender because that's what you're actually doing. No offense to anyone watching, or perhaps maybe a little bit offense, but how can you be an artist or whatever, or a musician for that matter, if you're only doing it 2 hours a week, right? So the way to discover your purpose is spend more time on it, see if this is something that you get rewarded for and you can do long term, and if so, develop it, and you will become passionate about it most likely. Or you can call it your purpose if you want.
Yeah. But I suppose it then helps that if you can make money doing it, that's even better.
Well, yes, because if you make money doing it, and by the way, you can make money doing almost anything, but if you can make money doing it, again, it will allow you to spend more time on it, and also free up the mental RAM. Instead of figuring out how to make a cocktail in a bar, you can spend more of your energy, time, and so on, more of your brain power on just completely focusing on that. I go to bed and I'm thinking, how am I going to get this and this person results? How am I going to create content tomorrow?
Yeah.
So I have to become passionate about it. And there's a lot of positive feedback externally, internally. I feel good about it. So of course I'm passionate about it, right?
So where do you think your drive comes from?
Everyone is born with drive. You just have to, instead of being told over and over that maybe you should be this, maybe you should do that, and so on, just follow. Again, it's related to passion, I think. Follow what you feel that you would like doing, and then just see where it brings you. Because I didn't know in exact type of business I would start and that I would succeed at, and so on, right?
Yeah.
But the drive for I can talk about drive for guys. So we're wired in a way where if we take decisions and then we execute on them and get results, right? So we're very goal oriented, very result driven. If we can do that as a cycle that repeats itself, then I suppose you could call that drive. So find it. I mean, you kind of create it. I would say you kind of create it. You create process, you create habits, and that forms your drive. Now, if I go and let's say stay at someone's home that lives in Siberia, and they just wake up, eat a fish, and then go fishing every day, right? I'm not going to be able to create my cycle of success, my habit. I'm not going to be able to execute my habits of success, and I'm going to start losing my drive. In fact, there's I've seen or heard a fitness instructor talk about this. He was this huge, jacked, successful guy, and he said, I'm going to become fat and I'm going to lose all the weight again, just to prove that it's possible. Now, when he sat there and he started gaining weight, and which is very unnatural for him, he doesn't even know how to behave in that situation, then what ended up happening was he became more lazy, and so on and so forth, and his wife almost left him. So why is that? It's because he lost a lot of his drive. So all those habits that allowed him to be very successful, and so on and so forth, he lost a lot of that because he changed his habits. So I believe that if you take a person and you help them create new habits of success that successful people use, and so on, that anyone is able to self-generate the drive and create the success that they want.
So what do you think are some of the habits that you've perhaps ingrained that have led you to your success?
Ooh, okay. Well, there's of course the traditional things like work out as much as possible, have positive, deep social interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You can fill in the blanks there, I'm sure. Work hard, especially if the younger you are, the harder you should work. I've been told, I'm not that old, but people who are older tell me, like you should work a little bit less when you're older. What else? What has led me to success? Travel, which allows me to reset a lot of habits and perceive the world from a different perspective than most people. I'm not saying I'm better or worse. I'm just saying it's a different perspective, really.
Mm-hmm.
Focusing, what I guess my main strength is focusing on people a lot. And usually you find this in really big companies. My company certainly isn't big. I mean, we work with 125 people. It's not huge. It's 125 people and 125 entrepreneurs. But the ability to focus on people and really like obsess over it. I'm obsessed with making people succeed, even if they don't see themselves as capable of that. That's a really powerful habit that I have developed over the past few years. Other habits focus on persuasion and sales, which I think any entrepreneur will have to develop. And persuasion and sales doesn't just mean that you do sales calls every day. It's a way of looking at the world and influencing the world, really. I guess those are the main 6 things that I can come up with off the top of my head right now.
Mm-hmm. So how do you define success?
Define success. Oh dear. So success is, I don't think a lot about defining success, to be honest, but if I had to come up with a definition right now, it would be the legacy that you will be able to leave the world, because we're working with a deadline here, everyone. Maybe some people don't like hearing it, especially guys in their 20s, but I just made a video about it actually. But we're working with a deadline, and the deadline, it may come sooner than expected. So what is success? Success is having influencing the world in a positive way as much as possible within that deadline.
Wow.
But for me personally, that would be, I already, I discussed it. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's my mission and so on that we discussed before.
Yes, yeah. Which actually, this has kind of worked out quite well. It's kind of a good segue into the next question. What would you like your legacy to be?
Hopefully one of my goals is living past 100 and hopefully even more than that, because there's a lot of developments going on right now that life expectancy is increasing, and be very productive. So if I'm able to get to 80 plus and so on, so my goal or you could call legacy. I'm not thinking in terms of legacy as much because, I'm maybe I'm not old enough or whatever, but I'm thinking in terms of goals right now. So the long-term goal for when I'm 50 right now is to be able to build a billion-dollar company, which influences a billion lives in allowing more people to take responsibility for themselves and becoming entrepreneurs. So legacy, it translated to legacy, more than 1 billion people influenced to becoming successful entrepreneurs.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's a proper goal.
Yeah.
What are some of your other goals?
I'm mostly focused on that, really. Like everything else that I do is just in support of that.
Seriously?
So when I build relationships of any kind, it's always in support of that. If I want to be healthier, it's in support of that. So it's very, I think it's very secondary if you talk about other goals.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's really, really visionary.
I mean, yeah. But if you aim for something higher, you're more likely to achieve more than if you just go for, the small ones, right?
Yeah, yeah. So where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
5 years, that's much closer. It's easier to talk about it. So basically 5 years, that is, so we're 125 members. I want to have a community of 5,000 people, 5,000 entrepreneurs. And when I have at least 100 of them have a 7-figure business. So we want to have, if you want to measure influence in terms of money, we want to have influence valued at least $100 million.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. You clearly absorb or assimilate a lot of information and knowledge, and in order to, you kind of touched upon this when we spoke yesterday, to make the videos that you make and the content, it doesn't happen by accident, and a lot of it's not just on the top of your head. You actually have to put work into doing that. Mm. So what are some of your favorite sources of information, maybe some of the favorite books that you've read?
Oh, I have a large list of books on my website, but just to name a few, my favorite book of all time is Tribal Leadership. Okay. It's a book that explains multiple levels of tribes, or the way people view the world as tribes.
It's not Seth Godin's book, is it?
It isn't Seth Godin, no. I actually forgot the author's name because I'm bad with names, but Tribal Leadership is an amazing, incredible book. And the year that I've read that book, that is the year that I've achieved 10, 100 times more success than ever before reading that book. So that book is incredible. And it really, it inspired me to build a community. And it inspired me to create cultures in anything that I do, be it when I was leading teams in companies or creating my own community. It inspired me to really create high influence and effective communities with high-end goals that exceed the normal make money type of goals. Yeah, and it's a very, very powerful book that everyone should read. In fact, one of the in the book it says, feel free to give this book for free to anyone. Just copy it and give it to someone. That's how much the author believes in the message. Wow. Because both me and him, I imagine, well, I know he believes it and I believe it. So both me and him believe that it can change the world. So that's the number one book. And then there's the E-Myth Revisited, which is
Michael Gerber.
Some core principles from that book are, I really incorporated them very deeply into what I'm doing. Then Millionaire Fastlane, which sounds, author also admits it sounds like a weird marketing title, but that's on purpose. It's just the title is marketing. The actual content is incredible. Yeah. Very real book about business. And there's not a lot of books about business that are this real. Because he's really good at explaining the whole passion and so on. It's closely related to E-Myth Revisited in my head.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Who or what inspires you?
Who or what? It inspires me to see students, so entrepreneurs that I work with, students who go from these shy kids almost, some of them are kids, 17 years old, to very confident guys, usually, mostly guys, who build very successful businesses. Anytime I see a guy go from, hey, I'm Timmy and I just started this and just, hopefully I'll succeed. And then 1 year later, they're flying all around the world. They're making $10,000, $20,000 per month. They're helping others achieve the same thing. It's incredible. Like I haven't experienced better inspiration than that. And what else? It inspires me to. I like reading. So outside of my business, I like reading books that are biographies by famous entrepreneurs who have achieved more than most of us will achieve. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Elon Musk, and Steve Jobs, and so on. You just read those books. And also Nelson Mandela, even though I don't like politics, I don't participate in any type of politics, but Nelson Mandela, like those types of books, really super inspirational. And some of them had really tough lives, and they've achieved so much. And if anyone listening to this, if you're not inspired by those types of, it's almost impossible you're not inspired. If you read a book cover to cover like that, you will be inspired, I guarantee it.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That's a tough one. The one I like referring to the most, I'm still thinking about the best, but the one I like referring to the most is start making money in your business as soon as possible, instead of waiting for this ethereal success that may or may not come. Prove that it will come by just making the business profitable. Maybe that's not the best one, though. The best one is probably... okay. Well, it has to be how value works. So this is from Eben Pagan. Okay, I have to give credit where it's due. So imagine there's a fountain, right? So this is the way he explains it, or the way I remember he explains it. And at the bottom of the fountain, there's people... should I explain it like that, actually? It's okay. So the way most people see the world, I'll explain it differently because I don't like the fountain explanation. It's like a little bit weird. So the way most people see the world is that wealth and money and success is a zero-sum game. So to win, someone else has to lose, right? But in reality, wealth, it's basically infinite. So there's just about everyone can become extremely successful. Now, if you want proof of this, think about it this way. 120 years ago or so, most people lived, the wealthiest people lived as an average or below average person lives now. Why is that? It's not just technology and so on. There's a lot more going on here. So it's the whole human ability to create just infinite value, infinite wealth, and infinite possibilities for everyone, right? So it's been proven, as much as you can prove it, that wealth, success, and so on is not a zero-sum game. Someone else doesn't have to lose for you to win. That's not how wealth works. And it's very rare that a business owner tells me otherwise, because it's a weird thing to believe that it's a zero-sum game, don't you think?
Yes.
Because imagine if all business people thought that it's a zero-sum game. They would have to agree that they're just robbing people of their future. Like, what kind of mindset is that? Of course they're not. Of course, if you have 100,000 employees in a huge company, you're helping them succeed in their lives and lifting them up. And that's the only way of looking at it, in my opinion, that allows you to push yourself beyond what an average person imagines they can do. Right? So I guess this paradigm, you could call it, is probably the most powerful that I know.
Yeah. If you had the opportunity to speak to the 20-year-old you, what would you say and why?
So I made a video about this today because you mentioned that you like asking this question.
Yeah.
So 20-year-old me, I would say, yes, you should go around, travel around, and meet lots of people, but focus maybe 20, maybe 30% of your time on creating very valuable, long-lasting relationships. Because sure, you're going to have, as an early 20s kind of guy, you're going to have a lot of very short types of interactions with people or business relationships and so on. A lot of 20-year-olds are focused on quick gain, quick money, quick whatever, just to make this one trip, to buy this one phone or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But just 25, 30% of your time, energy, focus on the long-term game, right? Because you don't want to tell a 20-year-old, no, just get a wife and just work on this one business. They're not going to be motivated by that. They're going to just not be able to understand it, and it doesn't make any sense. And the second thing I would say is I would make it extremely clear how limited time is, because when you're 30, right, you see the previous 30 years, there were nothing. They just passed by almost instantly. It feels like a couple of weeks, maybe a year. That's what it feels like sometimes. So make every day feel like you almost have no regrets. You're never going to have zero regrets, but feel like you almost have no regrets, right? Would you have more regrets if you travel the world as soon as possible, or if you waited until you're 65 years old? What would cause more regret here? What would cause more growth? Of course, traveling the world more early on and seeing things from different perspectives, right? And then read more. I haven't mentioned this in the video, so this is something that definitely applies. Because I was reading, but not at 20. I started reading a lot at 22, if I remember correctly, right? So read more and read non-fiction and read things that you're going to implement as soon as possible. Don't just read to read. This whole reading just to read and gaining knowledge or whatever, why are you doing it? Have like a purpose to it.
Yeah.
And I would be able to convince myself to start a business because I help people start a business for a living. I'm sure I would be able to convince myself at 20 years old to start a business. And focus also a lot on health, because I definitely made that mistake up until the age of 26. I didn't focus enough on business on health. Although there's still definitely lots of room for improvement, but up until the age of 26, like too much alcohol, that sort of stuff, it's completely unnecessary. It doesn't improve your life, even short term. A lot of alcohol is instant negative effect, and it's just not worth it. And I think that would be enough, because if you give a 20-year-old too many pieces of advice,
Overwhelm.
yeah, they'd be like, I'm just gonna go party, screw you. So I would just keep it at that, probably.
Some sterling advice there, though. Really, really good. Great stuff. If you could change anything in the world, what would it be and why?
I like talking a lot about responsibility, and everyone tries to play the blame game, or the, what is it called again? The grievance, whatever it is. So that more people, I mean, you can't say everyone, it's never going to happen, but more people take full responsibility for their lives. I'm not saying everyone should take care of everyone else forever, you know, that's too much of a burden, but just their own lives. Because most human beings are able to achieve so much more if they just take responsibility. And this one thing, responsibility, is a core principle of entrepreneurship. So you can't be an entrepreneur and say, well, the government this, the government that, or this other person is out to get me, or anything like that. If that just decreased and responsibility increased, this is just one small change, you know? People would seek more education, and the right type of education, not just to fill their head with facts, but to do stuff, you know, do stuff that makes positive change.
Yeah.
Because responsibility leads to all these things. So if I had to choose one thing, even though I teach business, I would focus on responsibility as the number one change.
Okay.
Because it leads to thoughts that lead to business, right? So.
Yeah. Fantastic. Aleksander, this has been an amazing interview. I've absolutely loved hearing your views and your opinions on things. You're incredibly entertaining, but I think one of the things that I've really learned spending time around you is just how focused you are, and how clear you are on, you know, what your mission is and where you want to go with it. And I wish you all the very best, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Thank you. It's been great visiting here, Scotland.
Yeah.
Edinburgh, very, very nice place. Everyone should visit. And it's been lovely being interviewed by you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Aleksander. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Cheers.
Right.